Hey guys, this is Navinat. I was playing this game. Thought I was recording, wasn't, so just thought I'd play the game out, and that would be the end of it. But this turned into a really, really brutal, tough match, and this guy is super competent. We're leveling, we're playing the game of poker, so I need to be quiet now, and I'm gonna just play. I need to do that, but I wanted to put this up here as an example of just a competent opponent, kind of like Reg versus Reg combat. So enjoy. So the first thing I would ask is, why are we donking here? And it's a game flow thing, but also this flop does probably hit my flat calling range better than it hits villain's opening range, and that's because we have a 3-bet dynamic established. So I have switched back and forth from a polarized to linear to polarized 3-betting range against this opponent already, but he probably expects me to be flat calling middling stuff, and I would also not be too surprised if he just gets really out of line, or calls down kind of light against donk bets and just kind of puts me on draws and plays accordingly. But I did think that the last that donking board was one that I didn't really want to check raise on, and I thought I could bet the flop and barrel some turn cards. Also, if he decides to spaz, then I can kind of use that information. So I would ask the person who played the match why we took the line we took. Okay, so getting into it, from this point forward, I'm watching a student's video, and I know that we've got some back and forth going on. We're playing against a player that is adjusting, thinking. His lines make sense. He's playing the metagame. We're leveling. And the reads that, let's say, a student gave me are pretty much that, and also that he's just an aggressive player. Okay, so I'm just watching for mistakes, problems. Yeah, 6-3 offsuit looks like a fine fold. Okay, and ace-jack offsuit against a limp is definitely going to be a raise. So that's fine. Pocket kings, we're going to open for sure. Yeah, everything's standard so far. So we can see that villain's not playing too loose and too aggressive with the stack size. 6-4 offsuit, a fold the stack depth for sure. 5-2 offsuit seems like a good fold. I'm probably going to agree with most of these plays considering I made them, but 5-4 suited I think is a fine defend against a min raise. I think we could have called there. I don't think he's going to have a lot of hands on that board. I think we could have flatted there the 4-5-6 and the 3 to the flush, plus just how difficult it is for him to hit that board. And I think probably in-game, the game flow and the dynamics at play could make that a fold or a call, maybe even a check raise. I mean, folding is fine though. Jack 6 offsuit I think can be a flat, maybe a 3-bet, depending on how we're structuring our 3-bet range. Okay, now we bink bottom pair, and it goes check check. So what do we think villain has here? I think villain has small pairs, air that he's just giving up with, and 6x, and I think yeah, checking and calling can make sense. Checking and folding the river probably would have been correct, because if he picked up the flush draw and decided to just start firing at it, then the flush comes in and he fires again. Or, you know, because there is some kind of dynamic. I mean, stacks are about even into the third blind round of game that I'm not even sure is a turbo. So there's got to be some table dynamics. I'll be able to do a better job of putting myself in students' eyes and kind of pretending like the person that sends us in is the student in the second match. But I like this line. We're check calling. That reps aces pretty good. Like ace X pretty well. Then we check, he checks back. Then we bet the river. love the line. We're floating out of position, which should be done sparingly, but if we know something about villain, we can definitely get away with it. Should make a note that he made a pretty large 3-bet. Okay, King Jack should be a 3-bet, kind of regardless, unless we're really polarizing our range. And I'm not sure what we're doing with the sizing here. I think this is just a pretty obvious 3x, 3.5x. I'm not sure what the game plan was. The only reason we want to do that is to maximize our fold equity and make sure that we know that we're calling if he jams. So there's really no point now sitting around contemplating this. If we're making this 3-bet size big like this, we should already know that we're going to have to call if he jams, and that we're going to probably be a bit behind his range, but not necessarily. So definitely a call. And if we could see his exact hole cards, we call. We get lucky, we bink, and getting on to the rematch. Okay, so this is the video the student submitted. Of course, we're role-playing here, but in role-play land, this video was submitted to me by a student. We have the background information that we've already talked about. Let's go. Let's get into it. I'm going to pretend like this isn't me. So this is the entire match. This is the first hand of match 1. I got a pretty good description of the opponent, and on to it. Pocket 7s this deep are going to be a 3-bet. I think we're going to 3-bet this hand. Yeah, that's going to be a good 3-bet. If we're polar or linear, I think it's going to be fine. It's just a hand that we would 3-bet. Heads up. We open 8-6 offsuit is fine. Fold to a 3-bet is fine. Okay, Donovan, you've got a decision here. I think the standard thing to do, I mean, if we're polarizing our 3-bet range, because we expect him to play very fold or 4-bet against us, then that would be part of our late 4-betting range, or 3-betting range. Yeah, because if you're going back and forth between call and fold, and you're going to have a bluff range, you should use the hands that are really close between folding and calling. Okay, we check, he checks. I think it makes sense to check call the turn and check fold the river if he bets. The mirror match. 10-6 offsuit, perfectly standard open. Like to see us c-bet the flop here for sure. Good. You're doing good, Donovan. I'm Navana, the opposite of that is Donovan, so this is Donovan, my student is Donovan. Jack 7, yep, check call the flop. Yep, looks good. Check raise the turn. And yeah, lead the river. All looks good. So my question is, what do you do? I would ask the question to the student. What would you do? Pause it here. What would you, or I tell the student to pause it at this number, and tell me what you would do if you had bet the river with that trip jack's hand and got shoved on or got raised. Okay, so pocket 7s, 3-bet, checking the flop. Now what? I don't like the bet. I think we just play this for showdown value and realize our hand is too weak to bluff catch, and we just check and fold on the turn. And we definitely check and fold here. So check call on the turn, I think, is burning money. We're either beat or we're not going to be able to get our pocket 7s to showdown and win with them, right? The guy's going to bet one time if he's got a pair that beats us, and then he's going to shut down. He's probably going to continue bluffing a lot, and some of the semi-bluffs are going to get there. So I think pocket 7s is just a check fold on that turn. So that's one mistake that I think was we threw away whatever that bet was, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I like the 3-bet. Ew, gross. So we just have to look at how often do we actually, what percent of our 3-betting range do we have to call it off with when he bets this big. And we can just call the very top of our 3-bet range. He's not going to be exploiting us because his bet's so big that we're kind of near the bottom of our 3-bet range. So we can fold, and we can fold everything to the top of our 3-bet range. So king, queen offsuit against a jam like that is definitely going to be a fold. Donking this flop can be okay. It was either check fold or bet on the flop. I think if we bet the flop, we're committed to betting the turn, so I don't mind that. Really got to be careful about balancing our donk range and understanding how our opponent's going to perceive our donk bets. This is close. We can just turn our hand into kind of a semi-bluff and just bet it. If we check here, he's got to know about where we're at. So that's the problem, is he can put a lot of pressure on us. So I'd be very surprised for him to show up with no hand here. So now I think he's going to have like a 6 or a 3, and I think we just check and fold. I want to see this as a fold. I think if he were bluffing, he would put more pressure on us. I bet he's got a 6 or a 3. I know I played the game, but I don't remember. That was a bad call. Because he's a competent player. Now, definitely can do that against aggressive players that are just screwballs and weird, but we don't want to do that against a competent player. I guess we could. I think all options are on the table, but probably the standard thing is just to fold. I mean, are we really gonna call down? No, we're gonna bink the queen. I guess if we feel confident that we can call if the jack hits, it makes it close. And if we think he's gonna check and fold sometime, both of those two things would be okay. But in general, I think folding probably would have actually been better on that turn. Yeah, check, call, check. Now I'd like to see a check and call here. Yeah, we just if we weren't gonna check and call, then we should have bet the river ourselves for thin value. But yeah, as played, I think checking and calling is fine. We just ran into it. What are we gonna do? The guy's capable of bluffing for certain. We showed weakness. We capped our range. So this would be a spot to donk. Okay, if we're donking those other spots, we should be donking this spot too. No, this doesn't make any sense. I don't think he's going to go for this. I think he's going to call us with hands that beat us. See, look, the fact that he was able to call with king high proves that that was a bad play. Because if we can't even fold king high out, what are we doing? I think that if he couldn't beat our hand, he would have raised us as a bluff there. And if he could beat us, he would have did what he did, called with stuff like king high. Although I actually would have thought a hand like king high would have been about the type of thing we would have folded him off of. But the fact that he's able to put that call together just shows how futile that bet was. We just needed to give that one up. Yep, just jam it, just put it in. He's priced in, we're probably out of his range, and we've got him crushed here. Fantastic. Villain made a mistake in not just shoving over the top of our raise. I don't know why he would want to induce with a pair of fours, but so he's making some mistakes. So we should take a note of that and not just think that he's definitely taking induction lines when he's making bets that look smaller than they ought to look. Doesn't mean he's got aces. He just did it with fours, which is like the worst. Baby pairs are the worst hands to induce. Because it's a huge game when you're able to get somebody to fold even like Jack 7 when you're sitting there with pocket fours, and you don't gain really anything by getting them to bluff over top of you. So, like the donk here, it hits our range better than it hits villain's range. Love the check, gives him a chance to bet that ace, or for value if he has it, or if he's floating against our donk. Now, yeah, I think check jamming is fine. I think a smaller check raise could have been okay too. Give him a chance to make some more mistakes against us, but that gives us the best chance of getting our stack in against an ace. Yeah, no, I don't like that. I think backing up, I think that when we checked and the ace was there, we donked the flop and we checked the ace turn. I think we should have checked min raised. That would have set stacks up nicely to just get it in on the river and given him a chance to protect his ace against us with a re-raise, or ship it in with air if he was bluffing. So I don't like that play. I think that was a mistake. We can definitely check call. It's getting a little sketchier, but a check call seems okay, and now I think we can bet for value. He's usually got a 5 or a 7 here. We'll play it down. Okay, so the way this guy seems to understand showdown value, does seem to know how to frame his hands, tells me that we need to be taking advantage of that, so that like when he does check back a flop and play something in a very showdown value oriented way, we need to be bombing turns, check raising turns, and really just exploiting the fact that he's probably c-betting a polarized range that may or may not be bluff heavy. I like a bigger, better check here. It probably would look unlikely to him that we have a flush, because he would expect us to check raise our flush draws most of the time. So I think we should have went for a bigger bet, or we should have checked, let him bet, and then went for a check raise. In game, maybe there was a game flow decision, maybe there was some kind of like read there that made betting more appropriate, because he did actually end up calling very light with a hand that almost certainly would have checked back had he checked. So that may be a little bit results oriented, or it may just be that there was something that the player of this game picked up on that I did not pick up on. So what's standard is to bet here. I think that this is kind of silly, and we're getting really silly if we check again. I think we bet flop, we bet turn, and we check call river. I think this was goofy. Fancy play syndrome. It probably cost us money. It definitely cost us money in the long run. Yeah, maybe we're worried that we're going to get check raised with draws and bluffed a lot, but we've got top pair. I think our hand is strong enough that we could have bet on the flop, and if we were raised, we could just call and then check call the turn and make a decision on the river. So I think we botched that hand a little bit. Check call seems good there. Okay, now I think we check and fold. We check, hopefully he checks. But like, just, we could bet, but if we're gonna bet, like, why are we betting? No, there's no bet here. Yeah, he clicks it back and we should fold. He's never bluffing here. I mean, I know we're getting 1,000,000,000 to 1. He's never bluffing. We only beat bluffs. We could probably try to re-bluff and rep like a flush, hoping he's got something like 2 pair that he can lay down. But he is definitely value betting here, and he knows our bet looks weak, so he's yeah, that was crazy. That was really, really poorly played. There's so many so many combos of hands that he has that make straights, and there's also hands that make flushes. He can have bigger pairs. That was ridiculous to lose money on that run out with that hand. That was bad, 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 bad. So that's something we need to go back and look at that hand, and we need to tighten that up. We really need to think about our opponent's range rather than just our hand. Instead of just looking at our hand and saying we have a bluff catcher, we have to think about what hands does our opponent even get to the river with that he's turning into bluffs here, and like how likely is our pair of tens even good against a random hand in that scenario? And it's probably not too good at all. So check calling would have been better than bet calling, but I think check, hope he checks back and we win. Planning to fold to a reasonably sized bet would have been the right way to play. Perfectly good. Check call here. I mean, yeah, call pre-flop. We check. Now, I think we should be bombing here. Like, I want to go like 190, 200, or check raise. Love it. Love it. Love this. Yep. So he's checking back. He's probably got some kind of showdown value type hand, or he's got air that he's given up with. So we need to like bomb that turn and make him fold. or make him make an uncomfortable call with showdown value, then bomb the river to get him to fold his showdown value, or just check raise or draw. And I think the difference depends on whether we think he's more air heavy or showdown value heavy. And we had, I know in the previous video, in the previous match, I do know I saw him check back a flop that he just had no piece of. So that is playing into that. Knowing that he's capable of checking back air, and he's not always c-betting his air, like if he has no part of it and it's kind of a textured flop, he's got zero equity, he will check back. Knowing that once he checks back on the flop, I think it's fine to check raise the turn. If we think he's checking back his showdown value, not his air, then I would prefer bombing the turn and getting ready to make a big bomb on the river, because we can't expect that he's going to bet that turn with like a pocket pair on ace 8-8. Or so that check raise is only a good idea if we can expect that he is going to bet. And I think we could expect him to bet his air. So again, if he's checking back air on the flop, I like the check raise on the turn. I think bombing would have been more exploitative standard, if that makes sense. I like a check call here. I don't like the bet. He is, yeah, we have two pair, but he's never calling us with anything worse. And he very well could raise as a bluff or for value. So I don't like that bet. I like a check call, maybe a check fold would even be better than betting, because betting just gives him an opportunity to bluff us off of our two pair, which is just a bluff catcher. It's not, we're not really betting for value. When there's 4 to a straight out there, we're not really betting two pair for value against a player that's capable of bluff raising us. Thin value should be avoided against aggressive players. You're not able to bet as thinly against a player who's capable of bluffing. And you should lean more towards check calling against those type of opponents. I like a big bet here. No. He's got something, right? And we've got it straight. I mean, I guess for like game flow reasons, like balance reasons, making sure that he knows that we can have the nuts when we, or something like the nuts when we take a line like that, does have value. I don't think it's worth missing EV over, and I don't like that decision. I think I'm surprised how many mistakes I'm finding that I made in this game. I felt like I was playing really well. That was a bad decision. We got no value out of that hand, and our opponent had two pair. He definitely would have paid us off. We capped our range. He overbets. It's disgusting. It's sick. But okay, what we have to think of here, the way we played our hand, how do we ever have a better hand than the hand we have right now? We would have 3-bet ace-10 pre-flop. We would have raised any 2 on the turn. When we check call flop, check call turn, and check the river, our range is capped at about the hand we have. So he's doing the right thing and putting massive amounts of pressure on us, but we've got to make this call. It's awful, it sucks, and he's going to have us very often. But we did the right thing, we made the right call, and we won the game. And that was 2 in a row against a very dangerous opponent. So pretty happy about that. So I hoped to make that look like a coaching video where my student would send in, or somebody who's kind of thinking about taking me on as a coach, would send in a video of himself playing, which of course first we're going to have some discussion, be it Skype, FaceTime, telephone, email, whatever. We're going to be talking, discussing, figuring things out. But then very often what I'm going to want a person to do is record a session and then send me that session. Then I'll make notes on that session and narrate it, and I'll send the notes back along with the narrated video with like call outs and the kind of thing I just did with my own video. But you're going to get a lot more out of it than what I would get out of it, because me coaching myself, I'm not going to find that many mistakes that I realize are mistakes, because if I realized they were mistakes, I wouldn't have made them most of the time. But luckily there were some situations that came up where I felt like I could have played them better. But yeah, just keep in mind that if I'm tearing your video apart, I think I'm going to find a lot more discrepancies, things that, and it's not that you're necessarily making more mistakes than me. It's just that the mistakes you are making, I'm more likely to see than I am to see the mistakes I am making. Again, if I was aware that a thing was a mistake, I likely would not make it, right? So it's going to be hard for me to see my own mistakes. Um, so you, whether you're as good as me, not as